afternoon, Barons. Welcome back to Franciscan Beat. I'm Thomas Pear Manley. Here are the headlines from the U.S. and around the world. Russia has retaliated for what it claimed was a Ukrainian terrorist attack on a critical bridge by unleashing its biggest and most widespread attacks against Ukraine in months. The lethal barrage Monday against multiple cities smashed civilian targets. It killed at least 11 people, knocked out power and water, and shattered cars and buildings. Ukraine's emergency services said 64 people were wounded across the country this morning's attacks, and the biggest and broadest since the early days of the war. One Russian missile hit a playground in downtown Kiev, and another struck a central building of a university. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said the attacks aim to inflict the most damage on civilians. These attacks are an escalation in Moscow's war against its neighbor, but military analysts say it's far from clear whether the strikes mark a turning point in a war that has killed thousands of Ukrainians and sent millions fleeing from their homes. A small business advocacy group has filed a new lawsuit seeking to block the Biden administration's efforts to forgive student loan debt for tens of millions of Americans. The suit, filed Monday by the Job Creators Network Foundation, argues the Biden administration violated federal procedures by failing to seek public input on the program. It also argues that the program is arbitrary, benefiting some borrowers, but not others. It's one of a handful of lawsuits filed by conservative business groups, attorneys, and Republican lawmakers in recent weeks, as the Biden administration tries to push forward with its plan to cancel billions in student loan debt before the midterms in November. The United Methodist Church, long a mainstay of the American religious scene, is beginning to fracture. Hundreds of churches have already disaffiliated from the denomination this year, with hundreds more moving toward the exits. Many plan to join the newly created Global Methodist Church, formed by conservatives frustrated by continued defiance of denominational bans on same-sex marriages and the ordination of openly LGBTQ pastors. So far, the majority of congregations are staying, but several of the largest are planning to leave. The breakup comes amid mutual accusations of hardball tactics and spreading falsehoods. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene once was shunned as a political pariah for her extremist rhetoric. Now, the Georgia Republican is being welcomed by House Republicans into the fold. Recently, Greene was front and center as Republican House Leader Kevin McCarthy unveiled the House GOP's midterm campaign agenda in Pennsylvania. She also joined Donald Trump at a rally in Michigan. Greene spent her first term stripped of committee assignments by Democrats over her rhetoric. But if Republicans win the House majority in the November election, Greene is poised to become an influential player. She told the Associated Press that impeaching President Joe Biden tops her agenda. North Korea says its recent barrage of missile launches were the simulated use of its tactical battlefield nuclear weapons to, quote, hit and wipe out potential South Korean and U.S. targets. Its leader, Kim Jong-un, has signaled he would conduct more provocative tests. Monday's North Korean statement, released on the 77th birthday of its ruling Workers' Party, is seen as an attempt to buttress a public unity behind Kim as he is struggling to overcome difficulties such as pandemic-related economic hardships. North Korean state media says North Korea's recent missile tests were conducted in response to recent naval drills between the U.S. and South Korean forces, which involved the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier USS Ronald Reagan. Pope Francis has denounced Europe's treatment of migrants as, quote, disgusting, sinful, and criminal. The Holy Father gave the description on Sunday as he canonized an Italian bishop and an Italian-born missionary whose work and lives illustrated the difficulties faced by 19th century Italian immigrants. The Holy Father departed from prepared remarks to slam Europe's indifference to migrants who often die during perilous sea crossings. His Holiness's comments generated applause from the faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square on Sunday for the canonization of Don Giovanni Battista Scalabrini, an Italian bishop who founded an order to help Italian immigrants, and Artime Zatti, an Italian who emigrated to Argentina, where he dedicated his life to helping the sick. The Vatican has also released details of Pope Francis's upcoming trip to Bahrain. The itinerary blends three of his top priorities as Pope: ministering to a tiny Catholic community, promoting dialogue with the Muslim world, and fostering relations with other Christian communities. The Holy Father's 3-day visit in November will mark his second trip to a majority Muslim nation in as many months. It is also his second to participate in a gathering sponsored by an organization other than the Vatican to promote interfaith dialogue. Just as His Holiness did in Kazakhstan last month when he participated in an interfaith peace conference, the Holy Father will close out the Bahrain Forum for Dialogue, East and West, for human coexistence. Before we go, let's take a look at our local weather forecast. Currently, the temperature in Steubenville is a balmy 67 degrees with a nice 8-mile-an-hour breeze moving west-southwest to offset that 38% humidity. After sundown at 10 minutes to 7 tonight, that temperature is going to keep going down for a rather cold morning with temps as low as 44 degrees. That will pick up with more sunny skies and a high of 69 tomorrow. We thank you once again for joining us for this Franciscan Beat News Brief, and we wish you all the best of luck on your midterms this week. For Franciscan Beat News, I'm Thomas Pear Manley. Have a great evening, Barons.